They asked I should speak a little bit about Tavshin and Beis, which Yud Gimmel Iyar Aboyim Shana. And actually, there was a chiddush then. There was a chiddush then Mishaitei, something new. But just to give it a little bit more background, everyone understands what happened. Chavzayin Oder Tavshin and Beis, Chavzayin Oder Rishon, and the matzah of the whole situation after the Rebbe's the what happened and the Rebbe's health situation caused the whole everything to be different than it was up until then for all of the for much time. And as Bochrim, we were looking also to give an achas ruach, and it was 40 years since the passing of the Rebbe's brother at that time. And the Rebbe had already been misyaches to it publicly, speaking to Farbrengen, lessons that could be learned from the name of his brother and how it's pertinent to each and every Jew. Yisrael, Aryeh, the king of the animals, the strong one, the way it's in jargon, and I understand that probably somebody here has said the Sikha. So this and even in a simple way, and I'm sure it's been discussed too,
No, we
that
did discuss it. You could say it. Go ahead.
the simplest way is that a day that's negated to the Rebbe in his quote unquote personal life is negated to all Chassidim, no matter what. And this was, in a more very important, let's say, day in the Rebbe's life. Let's just take the one day that the Rebbe Farbrengt all the years of the Nesias. There was only one Yom de Pag that the Rebbe never missed a Farbreng on that day. Through all the years from Tavshin Yud through Tavshin and Aleph, Al Kaponim in those years that Rebbe would call Farbreng in the Sicha, and that was the day of Chafov, the Yortzeit of his father. Of course, Vav Tishrei also, but Vav Tishrei didn't start till more than 15 years in. So the only day through the whole Nesias that there was a Farbrengen was Chafov. And everyone knows the famous story, which I'm not going to get into all the details now for sure, of when the Shluchim were sent in Tafshin Chav base to France, to the yeshiva in Bermois, and there was a group of 6 guys, and it came Chafov, and they were making a Farbrengen, and whatever it was, not all were ready yet for such a revelation. And what happened. It's not negay here for right now. But Reb Nissen Emenov came, there was a bit of a ruckus, let's just say, and he said, what's going on? He was called in by his son, who's the current Rosh Yeshiva there, Vechom Teves, and they said that it's Chofov, it's the Yartzeit Medem Staten, and the Bochum were holding by Farbrengen, one of the other senior Chassidim there, let's just say, wasn't so enthusiastic, B'loshen Hamaot, as they say. And what everyone gave there, Reb Nissen was, whatever he said went, and he sized up the situation very quickly, very fast. And he said that it's a day that's connected to the Rebbe, it's a day that's connected to the Rebbe, Chassidim, we have to Farbrengen. Reb Nissen himself said that on Farbrengen. The Rebbe had a very big nachas from this. And no matter it's a very long story, which is not really for today, but it's a bit related. The point is that the Rebbe himself shared with us this day. It's a very personal, painful day for the Rebbe. Obviously, a day of a Yortzeit of a brother, and is a painful thing, no matter what. And even though they lived far away from each other, and they lived together in Berlin for a short amount of time, but later he went to Israel. The Rebbe was in Paris, and the Rebbe came to America. They communicated a little bit with letters, whatever it was. But the point is, it's a day, a painful day that the Rebbe shared, and the Rebbe shared it today from Golui, first of all. So for the first 12 years, 13 years, the Rebbe had to be very careful because he didn't want his mother to know, Rebbetzin, Holy Rebbetzin, to know that her son passed away. If you look even in the Rishimis, he alludes to the fact that maybe she knows, but she writes things like, hear from him, he's far away, who knows? She likes things like that. So, and a lot of Chassidim feel that maybe she knew, but she didn't want the Rebbe to know that she knew, so that would give the Rebbe a slavish, and the Rebbe didn't want her to know, and then this is how they went the whole time. But in a revealed way, nevertheless, the Rebbe said Kaddish in these days, so it's not like it wasn't a big news thing So I think he wasn't when during the shiva. The Rebbe actually still went out to visit his mother every day, so she shouldn't think there's something wrong. And I'm sure I don't know if the story was told here. The Baal HaYorter of last week, the Rebbe Yunik actually took shoe polish, and if you remember how the Rebbe's oil shoes looked, that on the bottom they're like beige color, and he took shoe polish and he painted it black so that it should look you shouldn't see that he doesn't have black shoes on. And he visited his mother even during those days. So that being said, the Rebbe, people knew that wasn't the only day in the year anyway. The Rebbe said Kaddish. There's a list of the days. The Rebbe says, like Moshel, like Yudas Kislev, etc., like the Rosh Hashanah, whatever. There's different days. So one of the days was, of course, Yud Gimmel Iyar. And then in the Mems, when the Rebbe already started to speak in a open way, he really shared the day with Chassidim in a clear way in these sikhs, and more than once. And then go on the later years that I've actually edited a mimer on the occasion of this yard site. And Amorim sometimes connection, and everything is printed and everything's available and everybody has it. But it is just to relate a little bit of how the Rebbe shared this personal quote unquote day with everybody. And ultimately, the Rebbe's life is the life of Chassidim. And Chassidim lived the life of the Rebbe together. So it's a simple thing that Chassidim come together. So when I was 40 years is a significant milestone. So as Bochrim, we said, you have to put something together. It had to be interesting. And obviously, I mean, you had to be. So the year before that was our Boim Shana. It was, the year before that was Chamishim Shana from Chav Ches Sivan. And the same, more or less, some of the same people put together a kovetz, which that kovetz, as is well known, the Rebbe accepted it, gave him a lot of nachas, and that had also only been a quote unquote recent development from Tavshim and Vav, as is well known. Today it's not Chav Ches Sivan. We'll get to that, but the first Hisyachsus was in Tavshim and Vav. People found out about it. The Frierdiker Rebbe's letters were printed. They saw the letter that the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote to Rabinovich in Boston that says the date that the Rebbe came, and whatever it unfolded. It was a Sudasido, etc. So when it was Chamishim Shana, the kovetz was made. Within the kovetz, there isn't just a memorim in the Torah that Rebbe said and the letters, but there's also a little bit of the Parshas Segayim with documents, and it was interesting. And the Rebbe, okayed its printing, all of it with the wanted it looked over again, etc. And he really didn't make. He just allowed it. He looked at it beforehand and he gave a date for it. And the Rebbe, of course, the biggest. Someone asked me, the Rebbe was Magir. What changes did he make? What was the Rebbe's input? I said, you want to know what the Rebbe's input was? That he stood on his feet for 4.5 hours or whatever it was and handed it to 6,000 people. That's a pretty big input for a kovetz. So that being said, it came the date of Yud Gimmel Iyar, Tafshinun Beis. So we felt that it's just only appropriate to put out a kovetz. So together all the also the memorim that were published in connection with the day Yud Gimmel Iyar, Yudal Iyar, the memorim that were said on this date, and with the dates, the kovetz is available, at least in PDF. I'm sure it's available, and you could see the things that are in there. But the Torah was all put together so people could learn it. But then there had to be a bit of a biography. Now, due to the sensitivity of the matter, the personal part, etc., we put in whatever's. Now, this was before we had the Reshima, by the way. The Reshima I did hear was mentioned about the dream of the Frierdiker Rebbe that the Rebbe told the Rebbe that the Frierdiker Rebbe told the Rebbe to ask your brother about it. He was also present, so that's a moedic thing which would have, of course, been included, but we actually didn't have it. But what was discovered at that time was very interestingly, and now it escapes my mind exactly how. I don't remember if we asked. Was from the Rebbe's library, whatever it was. But there's a letter from the Frierdiker Rebbe to him, and this is I believe it's an important piece. Just besides the basic content and context of the letter, there's the deeper nakuda here. which the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote to him, and this letter is the excerpt. It's an excerpt of the letter. The letter in its entirety is not printed in the Kovetz. And I'll get back to the letter in a moment, but also there's a facsimile of some of his papers. We know the story also. It's now today you could see how the Rebbe asks Professor Rosenblum, who's actually a Makurev, but my father's Langizund, and my mother, Allah Shalom, who that was a direct chayro that the Rebbe gave my mother before she went in Shlichus. The Rebbe told, since she was a mathematician, the Rebbe told my mother she should take a job in her field of mathematics. Literally, when they were going on Shlichus, and my mother, of course, listened. And she took a job in the University of Minnesota, and she got a job to work in his department. He was publishing. He was doing something called New Math, something that was to teach children deeper concepts in mathematics, and he developed the whole thing. Ultimately, Columbia University took him away from University of Minnesota because he was so big, etc. But in the meantime, they were Makaravim to Yiddishkeit. He became from, and etc. So in the Farbrengen of Yud Shvat, I believe Tav Shalamet Hey, the Rebbe actually asks him, and this is all available. You could see it. The Rebbe asks him if he could, to give his opinion on a certain math paper. The Rebbe asks him, and he says he comes back and he says it's worthy of publication. We need some work done, and it was published under the name. The Rebbe's brother had a pseudonym. He went by a different name, M. Garari, Mark Garari, whatever it was. That always goes back to the Rebbe himself used that pseudonym, by the way, when he wrote letters, because the name Schneerson, the way it started out, wasn't a name that was, let's say, popular for good things in the Soviet Union. So therefore, the way we understand, they used those pseudonyms. So the Rebbe used that Mem Gorari also, and the Rebbe's brother used it. Now, why did he continue to use it later on? He actually had to change his papers. Once he changed his papers so that he would be able to get out, so that's what the name stuck to him. So he actually had that name. And then it's that paper is published by somebody. It says Oived Shisha. Oived Shisha means he works, and it's a deep thing in and of itself. That is the pseudonym, and he's not here for me to ask him. But there's a very profound, I think, in that also. I guess with Ten L'Chacham Yachkamoid. But that's what Paul Rosenblum for whatever reason, didn't want to use his own name, and therefore his pseudonym was Oived Shisha. So that being said, we took a facsimile of that work. My uncle's Odan Gesund Stark Gesund was on this. He might have spoken about it, but I happen to be that I learned in the yeshiva in London, Tavshmem Haim, Tavshmem Vav. And of course, Baruch Hashem, I have the chus to be close with my uncle, whatever it was. So he was the source where he actually got those. He actually met the almana of the Rebbe's brother. He helped her out, and she said, "I don't want to be matriach you." She said, "If it's something that you want to send to the Rebbe," he says, "For me, it's the biggest privilege to be able to do something to help you and to help for the Rebbe." So he got copies for himself also. That's how I got it. Okay, so that's how I included it in that kovetz. There's also my uncle had one of his sons were born in those years, and he got a beautiful, phenomenal letter, and I asked my uncle permission, Yemolt, that the letter is also included in the kovetz because it's a beautiful isyachsus, in a very rare way, in the letter that my uncle received from the Rebbe when he gave the name for the Rebbe's brother. And the Rebbe adds and signs it later on, and you could see this, it's printed, that the Rebbe gives him an additional bracha, besides the regular nusach of the bracha, which the Rebbe gave to all boys, all parents on the occasion of the birth of a boy in a bris, etc. And there's an additional bracha in that letter, which is, I believe, quite unique. I can't say that there is no other one because I didn't see every other letter. But otherwise, it's a very, very unique thing, and that's also included in the kovetz. It's a unique isyachsus. We know that when people gave names from the base Rav, let's say, the people gave the name for the Rebbe's mother, So many, and this is also printed. You could find this. The Rebbe changed the Tichya to Shatlita on many of them, if not most, when it was a name for after his mother, and there's I believe a few also on the ones for the Rebbetzin, etc. So there's especially siachsus, an appreciation, so to speak, in a Eifen Goli, in a revealed way, that the Rebbe gave for um, sharing in his personal life. So now getting back to that letter, so another thing that we got that was included in this biographical part was a letter from the Frierdiker Rebbe to the Rebbe's brother. And there the Frierdiker Rebbe asks him a very interesting request, and that is that he was an academic, as is well known, and the Frierdiker Rebbe asked him to translate the Tanya into English. And if I remember correctly, I don't have the Kovitz in front of me because I'm not by my stuff. You see, I'm still shul actually. So the if I remember correctly, if I'm not mistaken, that he speaks about the importance of to do such a task. You have to have a proper understanding, not only in the language and the languages that the original and the one that it's being translated into, but you also have to have a proper knowledge of the content of the teuchen, of the content of what is being translated, and that he believes that he has all those capabilities, which means, by the way, that he knew English well, or so the Frierdiker Rebbe felt about him, and that he could know if he needed to. Although his papers are in English, so that's clear. Although it's not, it's not, yeah,
It's a very known, one of the famous stories about the Rebbe and his brothers, that they used to compete who learned
on
the
languages.
language in 2, 3
Yeah,
weeks.
yeah.
And they all learned
Yeah,
English. They all know it.
yeah. So the Frierdiker Rebbe asked him that. And if I remember correctly, the Oishprach there, if it's not exact, the Teuchen is certainly correct, that the Frierdiker Rebbe says something like, if you take the Yefifusei shel Yefes ba'oholoi shel Shem, which is a profound Oishprach, and a Piskom, saying to take the beauty of 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 not necessarily cultural art and intellectual things, but it's what comes from Yefes. It's not Shem, it's not yet a Torah, but it's needed to be used for inyonim of Torah and inyonim of mitzvahs, inyonim of elikus. And the Frierdiker Rebbe tells him, number one, you see that he had the Yififusay of it, and besides the poetic piece of this, also that Yefes and Yififusay comes to the same Shadish, etc. It's the idea of beauty in general, that it has a potential beauty, etc. And Shem is, of course, the not only the son of Noach, from which the Torah and the Eden come from, but it's also the union of Shem Bechlal, that our name is the channel through which everything comes to anything in the world, whether it's a person or the name of it, like it says in Tanya, Sharich V'Emunah, etc. So he says, if he puts a shel yefes ba'ol shel Shem, and the Frierdiker Rebbe felt this about him, and he asks him to do this. To the best of our knowledge, we don't know, we're not aware of if he started the project, if he did the project, whatever it is, but he actually was asked clearly in this letter in writing to do this project. And we also have in one of the letters from him that we see and that were, I believe, it's also printed, I believe, is he calls it. It might even be it's printed in more than I believe more than one place, that he speaks about his pain and sorrow from the Osain, referring to the passing, the Istalkus of the Frierdiker Rebbe in the Beis Chayenu, and so he writes that too. And then we have, getting back to what we spoke about earlier, how the Rebbe would send these postcards to England to be sent back to his mother to keep this knowledge from that he passed away, and the Rebbe would himself write in the last line. There's several of those postcards were on display in the Rebbe's library, both postcards how he wrote it and how the Rebbe's brother wrote, and how the Rebbe actually copies the style and continued to put those one-liners after the rest of the letter that was written by the Almona and about his niece, etc., etc. So it's a day that's connected to Chassidim. And the Rebbe, when the Rebbe spoke at the Farbrengen, and the Rebbe said many times about many things, that obviously something, how do you know if something is correct and good? If it's Moisef Yiras Shamayim, if it's able to give us some growth and inspiration in our Yiras Shamayim, in our avoid, and everything that we're supposed to do, then it's significant and it's important and it's a good thing. So when Chassidim get together on a day that's connected to the Rebbe, and although it's a day which is connected with anguish and pain, it's not just a passing of a brother at a young age and in a situation living far away, etc. But nevertheless, it's everything that the Eibishter does. He gives us as something, as an impetus and a catalyst for growth. And in each one over here that ever helped us, clearly, and said that the lesson from his name is the whole idea of Yisrael is that every Yid is called Yisrael. A generic term for Jews is Yisrael, an Israelite, Israeli, etc., where it says, many places. So why did we get that name? That Kisarisum Elikim Vanoshim Vatuchal, that it symbolizes that there's a struggle. That there is a struggle. That's the first one who was called Yisrael is Yaakov Avinu, that he had the struggle with the angel of Esav, and he gets the name twice. He gets it. He gets a preview, and then he gets it from the Eibishter himself later on. And the point is that he's able to persevere and overcome this hardship. This is literally a wrestling match. And that's really what our life is about. Like Tanya speaks about the fact that there's a continuous war in our life. And therefore, Yisrael emphasizes and symbolizes the fact that we can overcome and we can be victorious in this war. Even if someone has a wrestling match, doesn't mean that they weren't on the bottom some of the times before they won. But they won the match. They won it. And therefore, the next name, which is Aryeh, which is the king of the animals, the strongest animal, the one that everyone else all the other animals are scared of, that has the strength, that he's able to hunt and able to get, able to, it's not just Yisrael, but it's actually preemptive, and it's actually able to pursue this idea, knowing that there will be a struggle, because even a lion has a struggle. A lion doesn't get his things easily. He doesn't have to. He doesn't sit back and the deer comes to him, or whatever the animal is, to eat it. He has to go and work. He has to work to be able to get what it is. And then the Rebbe says, and then his name wasn't just the Arya, but also Leib, the way it's in jargon, the way it's already actually translated into simple understanding, meaning totally practical, in the most practical way. The Rebbe said, look, this is his name, and this is connected to each and every one of us, because each and every one of us has a struggle. Whoever, if we don't admit it, then that's part of the struggle in and of itself. And even a Tzaddik Gomer has a struggle, because the Tzaddik Gomer who's up to Tshuva Ilah. Let's go to this top level here and talk about it. So they have to struggle to get higher. And those who are not yet on the level of Tzaddik Gomer, who are still on the level of Beinoni or becoming a Beinoni, certainly have a struggle. And therefore, this name gives us the Rebbe gives us an instruction of how to try to apply it to our own lives, to realize that even though it's a struggle, you can overcome it. And that's what we have a special power within ourselves, that we're already given that bracha, because we are all called Yisrael, not just our father Yaakov Avinu. So clearly, whatever. When the Rebbe shared this day with us in Oif and Goli, he also shared it with the Seirah, with the instruction of the fact that it's something that we can better ourselves with, and it can be regardless in what we're involved in. We can do it better and stronger, and that's the goal. Rebbe should help L'chaim to each and every one of us. That it comes to the Yud Gimmel Iyar, go straight into Pesach Sheni. Pesach Sheni is the idea that in Pesach Rishon, you have to have the chametz abolished, destroyed. You can't have it at all, because it's going to interfere with the avoida of matzah, of anova, of whatever it is that takes the bittul to be able to do everything else. Pesach Sheni, on the other hand, you're able is the lesson that although during the avoida you can't have the chametz, but it could be imay babayis. It could be with the person, you don't have to destroy the chametz, and that's the meaning of Pesach Sheni. So in other words, we have, even though we have the chametz and we have everything, we can succeed in whatever it is that we have to do. And these 2 days are always in proximity to each other. So l'chaim, that we should all grow, Michael Choil, and we'll have the fulfillment of the promises. And the whole Beis Harav, etc. With the Gula Mitzvah Shleima, the Mashiach Tzidkenu B'Korav Mamash L'chaim.